There is a ghost haunting DC Comics.
I thought you were going to say down in the basement. I was getting a little concerned. I hope not.
There's a ghost haunting DC Comics.
Is it Jack Kirby? His birthday?
It is not. Yeah, we just passed his birthday. Yes.
Just passed?
No, it is not Jack Kirby. But he does tie into this video a little bit. So we'll get there. It's actually a character called Brother Power the Geek.
Huh?
And he pops up every once in a while in different weird places all over the DC universe.
1970s greatness.
60s.
Oh, 60s?
Even earlier. Yeah. So we're going to be talking today about the history of the character Brother Power the Geek. Brother Power was created by writer and artist Joe Simon while he was freelancing at DC in 1968. The character premiered in Brother Power the Geek #1 in July of 1968. Now, it was a new character, previously unheard of, and he premiered in his own title.
So what was the basis of that? On what did they... Why... Like, even the big guys, the Flash, the Atom, they all appeared in something else first to see if there was any...
Some kind of anthology.
If they had any legs, if people would go out and support the character. Why would someone like this get his own comic book right out of the gate?
It's a good question, and I think the reason is because he was created by Joe Simon. I think he got his own comic based on the reputation of Joe Simon. If you don't know who Joe Simon is, Joe Simon was a frequent collaborator of Jack Kirby during the golden age of comics. He's actually the co-creator of Captain America, co-creator of the romance subgenre in comics in the late 1940s, right? And had a huge contributing input to the creation of horror comics in the early 1950s. So he was a big, big deal in comics.
And he knew what he was doing.
And I think that's why they just went right out of the gate and gave this character its own
That makes sense,
comic.
because he was, I mean, that's after World War II, romance comics becomes a big thing. And if he was one of the ones that started, that's huge.
And horror comics.
And horror comics become huge until, you know, the big government thing.
Right. So Brother Power actually only ran for 2 issues.
Guess he was wrong on this one.
And it's actually pretty funny. Here's how it happens. Here's the origin of the character. Brother Power the Geek is actually an animated tailor shop dummy, kind of like a living mannequin.
Okay.
And the story is there were these 2 hippies in San Francisco who were squatting in a tailor shop. One was named Nick Cranston. The other was named Paul Symbolist. They're attacked by Hound Dog and his biker gang called the Warhawks.
1960s.
Yep, villainous biker gang. They're always hassling the hippie kids. You know, they beat them up, and they go back to their tailor shop this abandoned tailor shop where they're squatting, and they hang Paul's clothes on a tailor's dummy. His bloody clothes, they're wet from the rain.
Is he dead?
No, he's alive. They're fine. Yeah, they survived the attack.
Okay.
And eventually they just forget about the clothes being there on this dummy in the window, right? And they're living their lives in the tailor shop. Yeah, I guess he had other clothes.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Hippie clothes.
Other hippie clothes, yep. The dummy eventually gets hit by lightning. And the combination of the blood and the other stuff, and it's probably suggestions of other things, the dummy comes to life.
Drugs, are you suggesting?
They were very, very careful.
I mean, in the 1960s, they had to be following the comic code.
They couldn't mention anything about drug use.
Weren't allowed.
In fact, originally the character was supposed to be called Brother Power the Freak, but the connotation of the word freak had to do with someone who took drugs at the time.
Okay.
So they changed it to the Geek.
And the Geek had what meaning back then?
It was somebody who bit the head off circus animals as part of an act.
So it wasn't what it means today? Like
No.
It wasn't like a nerd or a...
No. And that's basically how he comes to life, the character.
Okay. How many issues did that first issue sell?
We'll get to that in just a sec. It's really interesting, actually. Joe Simon created Brother Power the Geek as both a parody of the hippie culture, which he was not really a fan of.
I would imagine they wouldn't be.
And as a wandering philosopher character, trying to piggyback on the success of characters like Silver Surfer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see no connection between the two, but go ahead.
In the first 2 issues, Brother Power falls into misadventures against the establishment, against the man.
Okay.
Main villain called Lord Slide Rule, who owns a factory. He gets involved in something called the Psychedelic Circus, he meets a hippie girl named Cindy who helps repair damage done to him.
Oh, because he's a mannequin, right?
He has an idea about running for Congress. And like I said, he works at a factory eventually owned by Lord Slide Rule. Issue number 2 ends with him getting shot into space on the orders of then Governor of California, Ronald Reagan.
Uh-oh. Was Reagan in it? They show Reagan?
A character that looks very much like Reagan. They don't name him, but you could tell it's him. Brother Power, the first 2 issues, modest but decent sales. Actually did fairly well.
Oh, okay, so it was selling.
Because it was one of those things that was weird enough at the time that I think it attracted attention. I mean, if you think of...
The counterculture accepted it as a hero for them.
Exactly.
Went out on board. Because if you think at this point in time, that's a lot of the comic book fans are...
the hippie kids.
The hippie kids.
At the time, 68,
making
69.
Marvel popular.
Yeah. Marvel and keeping some of the weirder stuff in DC alive.
At this time in the 60s, this is when you see that the changing where DC starts to drop in sales and Marvel really starts to rise in sales. And then this is their way to try to take back some of those. Okay, so
and a lot of that had to do with the counterculture's embrace of Marvel characters.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. Spider-Man's one of them. Spider-Man is
exactly.
at points kind of hippie-ish, right?
Sort of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Makes sense.
So why only 2 issues if it was doing well? Well, here's what happened. After Carmine Infantino retired, in an interview, he said that Mort Weisinger, who was the editor of Superman at the time, and who could not stand even the mention of counterculture in 1960s, hated hippies. If you look back on some of those old Superman covers, there's a ton of like anti-hippie stuff all over. Right?
But that was their part of DC's downfall, is they didn't embrace the culture that was occurring.
They did it too late.
They stuck with the look at that superheroes compared to Marvel superheroes. They stuck with those businessmen kind of working in society. Kind of all right. This makes more sense now.
So Mort Weisinger went to Jack Leibowitz, who was the publisher at DC, and asked him to squash the title,
even though it was Joe Simon.
He couldn't stand even the idea of this character being out there from DC, and that was the end of it. They killed the title. And Joe Simon went on to other things. He eventually worked with Jack Kirby again on Sandman for DC. But a different Sandman.
The original Sandman.
Not Wesley Dodds, no. A character in between who we'll talk about in another video. Eventually we'll have another video on that. And then the character was gone from sight for 20 years. But not forgotten. Especially not forgotten by some of the weirdo kids who liked him in the first place.
And who became the artists and writers, is my assumption.
Exactly.
Because that's what happens.
Right. In the Legends crossover in 1986 and 1987, there is a movie marquee in the background of one of the frames. I couldn't identify exactly what issue, where it says Brother Power the Geek, the movie.
Okay.
So he's still there. Not there, but still there. Kind of haunting in the background.
I have the Legends series. Legends are actually a really good series.
Yeah. And then in 1989, one of those weird kids from the 60s by the name of Neil Gaiman brought Brother Power back into the DC universe.
Okay.
In Swamp Thing Annual number 5, which was written by Gaiman and illustrated by Mike Mignola, the rocket that shot Brother Power into space falls back into the atmosphere. It's guided down by Firestorm. And
when was he shot into space?
In the late 60s.
Oh, in issue number 2 at the end, he gets shot into space. Oh,
and then that story never gets resolved.
Shot
shot into space on a rocket.
He got sent away.
And now he returns.
Mort Weisinger really sent him away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then he returns in 1989. Firestorm.
Right.
Sends him, guides the rocket back down to Earth.
Okay.
When it opens up, he sees this weird sort of living dummy thing.
Okay.
Calls Batman for help.
And so basically this issue is all about this.
His return.
Gaiman made it a whole issue of bringing him back.
Right. Batman doesn't know what to do about this guy. He's actually starting to change size. He's getting larger and smaller and he's freaking out and going crazy. But he knows that weirdness is probably best handled by somebody else. So he calls Abigail Cable, the then wife of Swamp Thing.
So at this point, there had been no crossover in the Brother Geek comic with any other DC characters, right? Okay.
No.
Okay.
This actually brings him into the DC universe proper.
Okay.
Right. Abigail Cable realizes that Brother Power the Geek is not just an animated dummy, but he's some kind of new elemental. Like Swamp Thing is the plant elemental, and then there's all these other elementals.
Yeah.
Animal Man is one.
Yeah.
Well, he is a puppet elemental. He's able to control and possess anything that looks like a human but isn't.
Okay.
And they find an aging hippie named Chester who's able to speak to Brother Power, calm him down, and then everything is solved in that issue.
Okay.
Right?
Sounds interesting.
Right. So, but the cool thing is Gaiman brings Brother Power back.
You have the issue?
No. Actually, it is available for order online. You can get the back issue, and it's not that expensive.
I wouldn't think so.
I didn't get
Brother
it.
Geek's not a popular character.
No. So then he disappears for a few more years.
Right.
And then Rachel Pollack and Mike Allred go back to the character again in Vertigo Vision's one-shot story called Just the Geek.
Okay.
They bring back Lord Slide Rule as a villain, who's now just a businessman. He's not so cartoony. He's like in a suit and stuff.
He's a 1990s version of himself.
And eventually, Brother Power gets teamed back up with Cindy, the hippie girl that
From
he
the
knew
original.
back
Okay.
then. Though Rachel Pollack brought it to a darker place. Cindy is now a prostitute, and Brother Power kind of like helps her, and she helps him. It's a bit darker.
Oh, it's Vertigo. So.
Yeah. And then he disappears again for a while. In 2010, he's brought back into the DC Universe again in the Brave and Bold Volume 3, number 29, written by J. Michael Straczynski and illustrated by Jesus Saez. The character is relocated to Gotham now, not San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco makes more sense, but go ahead.
Right. There's a fire that burns down a tailor shop burns down a toy store
Okay.
that Cindy owned. The
She's
hippie
not a
girl.
prostitute anymore?
Not a prostitute anymore. Now she owns a toy store.
Oh, it's a big jump.
And Brother Power has been spotted sort of wandering the shadows and back alleys of Gotham. And Batman knows about the story, the legend of how he came to be.
Okay.
And he puts him in a category along with like Solomon Grundy and other like urban legends of Gotham.
But is he intelligent, though?
Yes, he
Okay.
is. Yeah, he's completely sentient.
So he's not like Solomon Grundy.
No.
He just wanders the night, the
But he's
shadows.
kind of like one of
Okay.
those urban legends, like, Killer Croc.
I could see why we don't see his character a lot.
It's a very unusual character. In the Batman story, Brother Power is a lost soul. He looks around at the world of 2010, where he suddenly found himself resurrected, and he can't see any connection with the dreams and hopes of the generation that spawned him. People are disconnected. They're lost. It's a violent, dark world, and he can't sort of connect. The story ends with him rescuing people from another fire set by an arsonist that
fire?
Batman is trying to catch.
Seems like a connection with fire all the time.
Yeah. And then eventually Brother Power wanders off into the Gotham sewers and goes to sleep, kind of waiting for his time to come round again.
Okay.
Now, other than those main appearances, there have been small, like, cameo appearances where you see Brother Power in the background of something, but he's not really...
Yeah, DC does
part of
that a
the
lot
story.
with their characters. They'll have,
Right.
they have one of those big crossover events and throw everybody into it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't have a talking pup, but if you really analyze, you see all of...
Right, exactly, yeah. So one place he shows up is the Multiversity Guidebook. He's actually a member of the Earth 47 Justice League that's called the Love Syndicate of Dreamworld.
So it's back in the 60s.
Led by the Kid President. Remember Kid President?
Yes.
Prez Richards. Sun something...
Prez.
Sun something Superman. Was it Sun Power Superman?
I don't know.
He's black.
Prez, I remember.
He's black
I
with a
actually
big afro.
picked up Prez recently. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know.
Yeah. He's in the background of a panel in Kingdom Come when they're in a bar full of superheroes.
Okay.
You see in the back, Brother Power is getting his finger broken by Rorschach in the background of one of the panels. He shows up in the DC series Totems, but as a different version of himself, a more human version.
So he really does pop up a lot.
Yep. He's mentioned in Animal Man number 25, written by Grant Morrison.
I figured he'd be more... He seems like a character suited for that Animal Man series, to be honest with you.
He's mentioned as a character who escaped comic book limbo. That's how they describe him.
It was that point where Animal Man is actually somewhat real. Like there's a real... They're breaking the fourth wall in Animal Man for a spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I remember those.
And in sort of an Elseworlds version, he shows up in Planetary number 7. His character is in the background at a funeral of a character called Jack Carter, who's based on John Constantine.
Okay.
And they have a whole collection of Vertigo-like characters at this funeral.
But it's not them.
It's not them. It's an alternate universe version of them.
Okay.
and a character based on him is in the background.
Okay.
Near something Shade the Changing Man. And
first appearance of him is that Brother Power the Geek #1. Mm-hmm. Does that sell is that like expensive now?
No, not really. You can get it fairly inexpensively. You can get both of them fairly inexpensively.
Have you ever seen it at one of the shows we've been at?
No, I've never seen it in person, but I've seen it on eBay, and it's not that expensive.
All right, we'll have to start looking for one.
As someone who loves the weird side of all this stuff, I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, okay.
Not yet, but I'm getting
We'll
there.
start looking for it at the shows that come.
Yeah.
Maybe New York Comic Con has it.
Out of all the stories I read, and were able to read about Brother Power, I read as many as I could find out there online and stuff. J. Michael Straczynski's story is the best one.
Okay.
It's because it does a fantastic job of portraying the sadness of a character like this. Brother Power is a creature dislocated in time and emotional context. Brother Power is a spirit of a lost time, of utopian ideals like peace and love and connection through empathy. He's the wandering philosopher, like Joe Simon wanted him to be, but no one in our time is interested in his philosophy anymore. The world has grown colder and meaner and lonely because of disconnection and isolation. So Brother Power disappears into the shadows, waiting for a brighter time to come round again. That's really the best.
Has he ever appeared in any of, outside of comic books, in any of the other DC things, any of the animated series? Or
Oh, yes, he has. He was in the Brave and the Bold series. I know that.
But not, like, it wasn't...
The Brave and the Bold
not
animated
a main
series. No.
He was a background character.
I think he's in, like, a cold open in one of those. Yeah, I really
he's one of the first, which is one of the things I love about Brave and the Bold. If you never watched Brave and the Bold, the way the way the series started is Batman would have a team up at the beginning and it would last like 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Credits would start and then it would be the main team up. And a lot of those were like ancillary DC characters.
Yeah.
And it would be like that. But it was really well. If you've never watched Brave and the Bold, go watch Brave and the Bold.
If you like deep pool DC character stuff, Brave and the Bold is a great place.
Well written, stories are really good, really good,
a lot of fun,
and not really well received either.
No, you know what? Because it wasn't the darker Batman. We got to do a whole video.
Diedrich Bader does the voice. Absolutely fantastic Batman. Yeah, it's really. Highly recommend.
I recommend it too.
And now we have to figure out which episode he was in. So
yeah, well, maybe we should do we got to do a video on the Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, we should.
Series
Definitely worth watching.
The cartoon series.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Have you ever heard of Brother Power? Have you ever read any of the stories about him? Is he a character that should be brought back in a more significant way, in any way, shape, or form?
How would you?
I don't know.
It's just.
I like the idea of Grant Morrison having a whole hippie universe called Earth 47.
It's not going to sell though. You can't.
It would be fun though.
You're not going to come out
limited series.
Maybe as a backup in a anthology. One of the DC's been doing those. Newer people write them. That would work, but I don't think he could ever get his own series again, or even a limited series. It's not interesting enough.
I think Morrison could do it.
He could have done it during Vertigo's heyday. They definitely could have brought him back and done it.
I think if they hadn't done it so dark with the Geek, Rachel Pollack, I think it would have been better.
I mean, he could definitely appear in things, but not. It's not a well-received character. It's not a well-known character. It's not a character. We're never going to see him in the movies. Although you never know with James Gunn, you never know. He could become in a year from now.
He could be part of the Suicide Squad.
He could be the most popular character in the DC universe.
Who would have thought Peacemaker?
You're 100% right.
Right.
The stuff that James Gunn can do with a character like this,
right? It
could go anywhere.
Did you ever think you'd think so much about Polka Dot Man?
No.
Right.
No.
So, who knows?
And you're right with Peacemaker too. Peacemaker is a very unknown character, and he made him. Him and John Cena made him huge, and the same thing could happen with this if he pulls it. And James Gunn, if you're watching, give it a shot.
Take a look at Brother Power.
Take Brother Power as part of the Suicide Squad. Why not? Or in the background, and then just make a TV show. So, all right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
So, if you like this, hit like. If you really liked it, hit subscribe. And until then, collect what you love.
Love what you collect. We'll
see you later.
Next time.